Welcome to our McCall College Community Education Series. This month, it's on art and art history. I'm Dr. Brian Williams, and I serve as the moderator for our community education here at McCall College. And tonight, we're pleased to be able to offer Nettie K of Nettie K Studio. And so, Nettie K, welcome to our community education series. Now, why don't you give us a little bit of an update as to what's been happening in this series so people know to go back and review the first 3 videos that we've done.
Okay, hi everybody. The last couple of weeks, the first week we talked about our basic shapes of cylinders and spheres and how to paint them. And so I hope you will review that if you haven't seen it already. And then we did a painting of using those 2 basic shapes of pears and a pitcher, a silver pitcher. So this week we're going to branch out a little bit farther, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about complementary color and landscape. That's a big jump. Yeah.
Well, thank you. That sounds like an interesting evening, and we look forward to the education we're receiving tonight. I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. All right. Well, we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. I've got, I know this seems really crazy, but I've got a kind of a red-orange canvas that I painted ahead of time. This is in acrylic, and we're going to be painting oil over the acrylic. Now, one of the main complementary colors, and when I say complementary, it means opposite to one another on the color wheel. So if you've ever heard of a color wheel, these are the colors all laid out, and the colors that are opposite to each other on the wheel are the ones that when you set them next to each other will vibrate the cones in your eyes more than any other colors. Now there are colors that are harmonious, which would be maybe like lavender next to blue, that sort of thing. Those are the colors that kind of go together. And then there are colors that just cause kind of, if you do it in 50% of each color, will be kind of jarring. But when you take more of one color and add it to less of the other, okay, so we have more green and less red, you're going to have a wonderful, it's going to set that green off really nicely. Now this is a lot of red. So we're going to have to cover that up fairly well with what's the opposite of red? Well, the opposite of red is green. And I just think about those colors as being like Christmas colors, okay? Easy one to remember is the red against the green, okay? Now there are 2 other sets that I will talk about, and that's blue against orange, all right? What's the easiest way, Dr. Williams, to remember blue against orange? Boise State, maybe? Okay. Is that their colors? Sure, I think so. Not a sports person, but I think that's true. And the other one I always refer to as my grandma's pansies, which are purple against yellow. And those are the 3 sets that I keep in my own mind because that's what I use. If something's looking too bland, then I need to add something opposite to it in order to punch it up a little bit. Okay. So let's get into it and see if we can figure this out. All right, so right now I've got this red-orange canvas. And when we get down into here, I'm going to add a lot of green. Now up here, I'm going to begin by putting in a bit of a sky. So on my palette, I've got my gel medium, and I'm going to begin. Watch what happens when I add a little bit of this teal, and I'm going to add some white to it, because there's kind of an orange color in here. There's an orange color, so this teal is going to really go crazy when I put that on. Look how crazy that is. That's just, I hope you can see that on the canvas, on the camera. And I'm going to begin by putting some X's across, and I'm putting this in oil. And you can really tell because this is a greenish blue, okay? It's a greenish blue. So it goes on to that red, and it just really makes it pop like crazy. And I do this, I don't always start with a red canvas, especially if I'm doing a portrait. Okay, if I'm doing a portrait, I won't use a red canvas because your skin is very warm. And so if I use a red canvas, then your skin looks really drab. So I'll use a canvas that might be even turquoise or gray or something in a cool color. Okay, so there's kind of a little bit of an example of this. Now I'm going to go up above. When we do a sky, the top part of the sky, when you're looking up in the sky, is going to be darker because you're not looking through that atmosphere. So I'm going to come up here with a darker blue at the top and add that in up in here underneath my easel, and I'm going to crisscross that. If you were with me last time, you'll remember that I talked about the importance of not over mixing. So I want to make sure that I can still see some of these strokes. I don't want to just beat the tar out of it over and over. In fact, it would be kind of interesting to let some of that orange kind of shine through. We could even make it into part of a sunset if you really want to. So I've got this darker color up on the top as it comes down into this kind of a green, a light green color. It's actually a light teal. And then I'm going to just kind of merge that with some little X's here and there as we go into this one like that. Okay, doesn't that look pretty? I think so. And so we'll just cover this. This is a pretty good size canvas for what we're doing today. My arm's going to get all worn out. That's okay. When you want your strokes to go a little bit farther, use a little medium. What's the medium for? Well, it makes it more transparent. Look how you can see that orange through that just a little bit more. But it also makes the paint go a little bit farther in each stroke. So that's just kind of an interesting glowing effect. If I want it to be a little more opaque, I'm going to grab a little bit of turquoise. It's a little bit different. I'm going to add some white to it, and then it won't quite show through as much. Okay, like that. Good. Now, one of the things that that we need to remember when we're doing a landscape is that as things go, first of all, the sky is darker at the top when you've got a clear sky, and then as you're going back into space, the things that are in, like mountains and trees and everything like that, has more of a blue feel, or blue tone or blue color to it. That's the way we see it as things go back into space. And so the things that come forward, so you wouldn't put a bright green tree right there because you don't really see a bright green tree right in here, or a bright green mountainside. You just wouldn't see it. It's going to be more in a muted color into a blue. So that's what I want to get across today. So, or purple. Okay, so I think because we're got a lot of blue sky, I'm going to grab a little bit of dioxazine purple, and I don't want it too dark. I want it nice and light, and I'm going to come back in, and I'm going to create a bit of a, oh, that's nice. I want a little bit darker than that. There, okay, so I'm making a little bit of a bluish, not a bluish, a little more lavender and blue as we go into what's happening in the background. So I'm just going to put just a little bit of a landmass. I'm not going to do too much here, but just a little bit like that. And I don't see it very much. It's way far off into the distance, so I'm not going to see too much of that. I'm going to add now a little bit of, this is going to be a little weird. Now remember, the opposite color to purple is what? Yellow. So I'm going to add just a tiny bit of yellow where I might find there is a little bit of sun that might hit on the tops of that mountains. Just kind of giving you an idea of what these complementary colors can do. Okay. So now I think what I really want to do is focus on, I'm just going to bring this around a little bit. This is not going to become a masterpiece by any means. It's just kind of an example of what you can do with complementary colors. Okay, so we've got our blue up here against that orange. You can see that. We've got the purple against the teal. And now I want to get into a little bit of green and blue. And I want to show you a little bit on how to create the effect of water. Now, when you're doing water, the one thing you don't want to do is create any diagonal shapes, okay? Water is up and down, primarily up and down or side to side, vertical or horizontal. It doesn't go diagonally or all over the place. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to get some medium, and I'm going to begin with a dark teal. Ooh, that's kind of pretty. I'm going to take right here where I want to start my water, and I'm going to take that straight down. See how straight down that is? I hope it's straight down from where you're looking. And then I'm going to come up next to it with a little bit of our cobalt. That was turquoise. And here's cobalt teal right there. And I'm going straight up and down. And then maybe I might add just a little bit of this. This color is, what is this? Oh, Indian yellow with a little bit of white, which is going to make it a green. And I'm going to come down like this and create these vertical lines. How about just a tiny bit more white to that? I got a little teal, a little bit of that Indian yellow, a little bit of white, and now I'm going to come in right here in the center, bring it down. It's just a little bit lighter, and then some white, a little bit of white, a little bit of yellow. This is going to be kind of a lighter green color, and then we'll bring it down like this. There's that wonderful light green. And let's see what else we'll put in. Some, oh, how about some ultramarine blue? So a lot of times I'll do a bunch of different colors of blues and greens in a vertical format to start with, like this. Okay, and I use medium on it because it makes the, isn't that just beautiful how we've got these kind of stripes. Now that looks pretty much like a striped shirt. I don't want to have only just, you know, even lines going up and down, up and down. I want to make it much more interesting, so I'm going to add a little bit of a lighter value. I'm going to put some orange in it. And now I'm going to begin doing this kind of a thing. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go between two. Here's the light green and the dark green. And I'm going to take my brush and kind of wiggle it. I'm going to push that all the way off. Okay, so I'm wiggling it back and forth. And I might just kind of come down and wiggle it back and forth like that. And I'm creating kind of water lines. And I don't want them even, so they're not striped like a picket fence. But I'll do just that, and I hope you can see that. How does that look over there, Dr. Williams? Can you see that okay? I want to punch it up one more level. Here's some bright, a little brighter color of green, and I think I'm going to do that right here. So I'll wiggle it around a little bit and then bring it across. Little flattened Z's, but not even, not even. We're just kind of barely moving the brush down the canvas as I'm doing this, down the canvas. I'm going to do one over here so that you can see kind of what I'm doing. So if this was like this, I would be taking it like this, and then I'm moving it down the canvas just a little bit at a time, and pulling it and pulling it, and so that I'm dragging some of that paint on that water through like this. And then I can add some more white to it, and it will mix in with these colors. So I'm going to come up here. There's a little white. Maybe we'll have a reflection going down the middle of it. That looks very, very green, so I'm going to add a little more of that ultramarine blue and white. And we'll just keep pulling that down. I hope we don't have too much of a glare. It's kind of tough when you're in the filming studio here to get it to not glare too much. So that's how I do water. I do a lot of water this way, still water. And then I'm going to wipe off my brush. And then I'll put in some more white, a little bit more white. So it's not, hopefully it'll have a nice bright, I think I'll start it right here in the center. There. Now you can see it where it just kind of comes across like this. Now sometimes I'll do this. I'll take one stroke down and then I'll come next to it and take another stroke and then just begin moving it like this, back and forth, a little bit back and forth. You can put reflections of this up above down into the water, and I think what I'm missing now is I want to have some of the sky color, a little more of the sky color down into the bottom of the water so that it doesn't look too green. It looks pretty green. How about some teal? Yeah, a little bit more of that teal color. And you can see I can just go over it. If it looks too regular, you can always paint some more stripes over the top and then bring it back and forth like that and work your way across the canvas. Isn't that interesting? So that's just one of my little secrets on how I make water. Not everybody makes water in the same way, but I do like to think about the fact that this makes a very nice effect of going up and down and side to side. Okay, hope you got that. All right, now the next thing I want to do is I want to think about maybe creating a little bit of a land, a little bit of a sense of land. I'm going to take a little bit of raw sienna and maybe a tiny bit of white, a little bit of orange. And then I'm going to create a little bit of a landmass. This is just a little bit lighter than the background that we painted. So that's kind of different. And I'm just creating a little landmass like that. And then I'm going to go in with some a darker value. This is dark raw umber. And we'll create something, and I want to take it above that horizon line like this. And we're going to kind of create just a little bit of a rock. A landmass first. It's not really a rock because it looks like soil. But it just gives us something to work with like that. And then I want to go back into kind of a mess of a color of yellow with lavender and a little bit of white. And I will put in just a little bit of a rock. In fact, I think what I'd like to do is use a palette knife for this. So I'm going to take a little bit of gray made with yellow and lavender. And I'm going to create a rock formation using that. So it's just easier. If you don't have a palette knife, you can use just a piece of cardboard that you can cut out and just make it easy on yourself that way. I'll come back in with darker value behind it, make it to where it feels as though there's some marbling going on and a little bit of a darker side of the rock like that. That's kind of interesting there. And then I can make another little rock that goes in front of that, right like this. I'm hoping that all sticks onto my slippery paint here. A little more of a warmer color now. If you get a chance and you want to do some rocks, go get some out of the, just go rock hunting and take a couple of them and see if you can mimic them in either drawing or painting, and then you'll have a better idea. Rocks are not gray. They're not always gray. There are all kinds of different colors. And so it's always fun to try to figure that out. And when I get to that point, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to give this a dark a little dark value underneath that rock so that it kind of sits down a little bit. I might even take a little bit of teal, a little dark value. When I say value, you remember what that's all about. That means dark, middle tone, light. There's that. And then I might even come down into the water and create a little bit of, in fact, there's so much paint on there right now, I can go back in with my towel, a little Viva paper towel or a little rag, and I'll wipe out some of that paint so that I can put in a little bit more easily. Some paint that sort of looks like the rock above. And I'll reflect that down into the water and grab that from where I just made that paint down into the water like this. And then I'll wipe off my brush and then throw in a few lines like this from the side. There. That. I think it needs a little more orange and yellow in there. That. And so I'm making kind of a reflection of what the rock is up above. I don't want it looking like, you know, the exact copy of the rock. Maybe you want it to do that. But I want to kind of give an indication that that's there. Now, you can see that there's no real difference between the top of the rock and what's happening down here. So I'm going to take some purple and then create a kind of a little division between the rock and the reflection of the rock, like that. Okay, so that just kind of helps a little bit. And then I can always put in a tiny bit of just a white little line, a water line, like that. That separates it out a little bit. Anyway, that's just a really fun way of doing a little rock. So we're just doing a few little elements here and there on how to make different types of things on our painting. Now, let's see what else we can do in our little limited time today. I want to also, I'm going to go over here with a dark, I think what I'm going to start out with over here is a little bit of a dark purple. I'm going to go in with this dark purple. I'm going to crisscross it around like this. This is just going to give me a little bit, how about a little bit of magenta? That's nice. Give me a little bit of something to bounce off a few trees with. I want to make it nice and dark. How about some raw umber? Just a little bit of, in order for you to have a tree that kind of looks like it's going to bounce off of something, you need to have a dark value underneath. If it's a light tree, you want a dark value underneath. So I'm going to take on my brush, I'm going to take some raw umber on one side and some orange on the other. Flip it around, and I'm going to make a branch like this. Got two colors there. Sometimes I'll make it a little bit wider at the bottom, and then I'm going to take another little branch there, a little bit there, and I'm alternating. I'm doing an alternate pattern on the branches, so the branches don't come straight out like two arms like this. I have this one coming out lower than this one up here. Okay, there are some trees where the branches come out at the same level. My friend Chance O'Brien let me know that the other day, that there are trees that come out even on both sides, but for the most part, trees will have branches that come out. I've got one there. The one down here would be at another spot. It doesn't come out like that on the top. It comes out slightly different like that. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of these big old hardware brushes. That's cool. Pretty cheap, and they work really well. I'm going to get some orange, and I think a little bit of my Indian yellow, which looks exactly like the orange until you put some white with it. And then I'm going to add a little bit of teal. I don't have any green on my palette right now because I like to make my own green. So I'm going to kind of make this a little bit dark, but we're going to make a little generic tree, and I'm going to put this orange and green combination onto that branch. I want to make it a little bit darker, so I'm going to go back in with the turquoise, just a little bit of orange, and I'm just putting this on. Now, the key on here, again, people, is not to hit that 52 times in one spot. Make sure you only hit it one time if you can get away with it. Just put it on one time with these little weird leaves on, and leave a little space whenever you can. I'm going to now put some orange on top. So it's just kind of a little bit of a sunlit thing. And then I'll go back in over here and do the same thing. So I'm just kind of adding some like Bob Ross leaves to them. This is the easiest way to do it, is just kind of put a few little weird branches down. Get yourself some dark teal and a little bit of orange, and then you can add some other stuff to it as you go. So here's a little bit of teal and turquoise, and then here's some orange going in, and it just looks a little bit more interesting. Now this is still very, very dark, and then I'll come up and do some lighter touches to it. So I'm going to overlap this goofy water that we just did. Again, this is not going to be one of those masterpieces that I'll put on eBay, but it's more of a demonstration for you. So now I'm going to go into my white, and I'm going to go into my Indian yellow and a lot of white, and then I've got this on my brush. And I'm going to come up here where I think the light is going to hit, and I'm going to put in, you can see that nice contrast of a little bit thicker paint in the light yellowish and white and orange, and it just makes it feel as though there's sunlight coming onto your tree by putting in Indian yellow. You can use lemon yellow if you want. Lemon yellow you got to be a little bit careful of because it can get away from you. And I'm leaving some of those dark. I'm not covering the whole thing up. I want to kind of just think about where, on purpose, where the sunlight is going to hit. Okay, I'm not covering the whole thing up. I don't want to wreck it by doing that. I'm going to put just a little bit of the light where I think it belongs, like that. I've seen students come up and just bang, 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 and then just cover the whole thing. And I'm thinking, what was the whole point of putting the underpainting if you're going to cover it all up? You want to make sure some of that is sticking out a little bit. That looks pretty good. Yeah. Okay, so now I can't see my trunks at all, so I'm going to come back in with a little bit of our lighter kind of grayish color, and I'm going to put in a little bit of the light side onto our tree, like that. One tree, two tree. And I think maybe I'm going to add a little bit of orange to that too. Yeah, now there's three values. I've got a dark, a middle tone, and then I have this light orange, which gives it a little bit of a light. Now what is missing? Well, I'll tell you. What we're missing kind of a dark shadow on these trees, and the reason we can't see the shadow at all is because I've got some the background is just the same as the back of the tree. So I want to grab a little bit of my raw sienna and some white, and I'll make this just a little bit more interesting by kind of giving it a little bit of a feeling of sunlight coming down like that. And keep building up, building up. Might add a little tiny bit of orange and raw sienna in a few spots to create, well, then again, that's pretty thick paint. Sometimes, you know, you want to take your time and do this over a period of a couple of days. Oil paint, you can do that. You actually want to do things in layers, and every once in a while you can paint it what we call alla prima, which means all at once. But if you want to do things in layers, You can wait a couple of days, or you can do it in acrylic and do it all at one time and just get your hairdryer out and dry each layer individually. But that's just kind of how that goes, like that. I think I'd like to also put in just a tiny bit of a purplish purple with a little bit of our raw sienna, which is a little bit of a brown. And I'm just going to, I don't want this to stand out at all. I just kind of want it to look like it belongs a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so what have we learned so far? Anybody want to volunteer out there? So really, when we're looking at our blue sky, it's dark at the top. It gets a little bit lighter down at the bottom. And then Purple Mountain's Majesty will have a yellow highlight on them. The green is complementary to the red, so it really stands out. If you're wanting to put something red, like if you put a red tree, that would be quite something. Purple and yellow really has a nice contrast. I've got a yellowish ground here, and we've got that purple kind of banging off of there like that. And so that's just some of the basics of a few little items of landscape. Now, before we go, I do want to do one more thing, and I want to take a little bit of our sky color, and I'm going to lighten it up. And this you can use a little bit of Viridian, and I want to put a little bit of a lighter, kind of a wispy atmosphere. Anybody want to talk about clouds? I think that'd be fun. Really, really fast. I'm just going to create a little bit of there, and I'm going to darken up a little bit of our mountain so it stands out just a tiny bit. We're not doing Bob Ross mountains today. Those are best done with a palette knife, actually, and there's just some better ways of doing it. So I'm going to take this purple and teal, purple and turquoise, and I'm going to come up here and kind of create the base of the cloud underneath. And I'm just going to randomly do this. This is kind of a grayish color. And then I think I'll get my big fuzzy brush, and then we're going to come in with a nice warm white. It's not just straight white, but it's got a little bit of yellow in it. And I'm going to, this is a fluffy brush, fluffy, which means I've just worn it down. And I'm making little, okay, I'm going to say it. I'm making the little number 6. And I'm not lifting my brush up. This paint is still wet, so I can use that to my advantage. If I was painting in acrylic, I couldn't do it, okay? I couldn't get this to blend. I can still blend it because it's still wet. And so I've got this gray kind of underneath like this with my yellow color kind of coming up. It's blending a little bit with the blue. And I'm just randomly kind of those little swirls back and forth. Clouds aren't hard edges. They can be difficult, but they don't have hard edges. So remember that. They don't have, you know, they're not square, they're not, you fuzz them out, but you start out in the middle of them with a really nice bright color, and then you can just keep fuzzing them out as you go along. But they'll have a dark underneath like this, okay, a little bit dark, and add a little bit of purple under there in between, and so they have a dark, little dark shadow underneath. They're just endless. They can be all kinds of different shapes. I used to just do my paintings on a clear day because I didn't understand what clouds were about. And my dad, who's in the hospital right now, he was the cloud guy, and he said he painted a lot with paper towels. He used paper towels to paint his clouds. But he could paint clouds. Ooh, my goodness, when he was doing his painting. And so now I'm realizing they're not that hard. You just put your soft brush. You don't paint with an edgy brush. You paint with a soft brush, and you just keep that brush down on the canvas, onto the wet paint. And wherever it's bright, that's where you start. Say I want to make this nice and bright right there, I'll make that bright, and then I work my way out, leaving a shadow underneath like that. That is fun. You can stylize them any way you like. Make them your own. That. You want to make elephants in your clouds? You can do that too. There's an idea. That's kind of fun. A little bit of my blue there. Okay, so that's just one of the ways that I might approach a cloud. All right, how are we doing for time? Are we just about there?
We are at 35 minutes.
Oh, 35 minutes. That's pretty good. Well, I think that's probably a pretty good place to stop, unless you can think of something else that I could add in real quick.
No, I think you've done a wonderful job of getting started with some basic concepts. And it's always nice to see the water and get the concepts of water down. I think that's challenging for people.
Yes.
And depth, you've given people something to think about on how to create depth in their landscapes. And obviously, we're not attempting to achieve a finished product tonight. We're just trying to give the basics of how to get a landscape.
A few pointers, yes. Okay.
And so, do you have any hints on where you'd like to take this painting next week?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next, probably the next subject next week. And we may do either actually I'd like to share with you how to approach drawing a face to start with. I think that would be fun. And we may even attempt to paint a face. Now that's jumping from beginning painting into the deep end of the pool. But I think it's something that you can learn how to draw the various features of the face, and I know you can do this even if you're a beginner. So don't forget when you're watching live next week to bring out a piece of paper and a pencil, and we're going to do a face, and I'm going to show you how to do that, and then you can practice on your family members. Yeah, oh, that'd be good. That'd be awesome. Okay.
Thank you, Nettie K, for getting us started on landscapes. And we all look forward to an opportunity of learning more about portraits next week. As you've done some amazing portraits, why don't you take a moment and talk about the portraits that you have done over your career, so just people get a sense of some of the interesting portraits you've been able to execute.
Well, I'll tell you a little story. I had a long time ago when I had an art gallery in Pasadena, and I had studied portraits with Daniel Green, and I'm trying to remember if I had done one with David LaFell, but I had done I had never painted a man before. I'd painted kids and a few different things, and one of the ladies in my gallery, a watercolorist, she said, hey, you should put in a portfolio to California Technological Institute of Technology. They're looking for somebody to paint their Nobel laureates. Well, I kind of laughed. I thought, I don't even have a portfolio with any men's pictures in it. So I thought, well, I got to go fast. I went and I found a minister that would pose for me. And so I painted him and sent in some pictures of, different things, different kids that I had painted or whatever. And do you know, a month later, they called me and said that Dr. Roger Sperry had chosen my artwork to have me paint him. And he was the Nobel laureate scientist that discovered the right brain, left brain theory. So that was a wonderful challenge, a very difficult thing. But I did his portrait, and then I did another Nobel laureate scientist, Morgan. His name was Morgan, Thomas H. Morgan, I think it was, who had discovered genes and chromosomes in the 30s. And so that one was a wonderful experience. And so I painted him, and I painted the president of Caltech and then one other Nobel laureate scientist, Ed Lewis, I think. Was that what his name was? Yeah, that's right. And I got to know him a long time ago. And so I got a chance to paint 4 major pieces for the library in the biology department of California Institute of Technology. So those were some of my main portraits that I did. And then I entered a self-portrait competition a couple of years ago, and it was a big one where I don't know how many entrants there were, about, I don't know, 600 or something. And I took 16th place, which is, that's not too bad for that, of a self-portrait. So I have a big portrait of myself in the classroom here. It's kind of a fun one that I got a kink in my neck. I'll tell you, from looking in the mirror for 3 months, you get to know yourself pretty well when you do that. So try that a while. Ooh, a little therapy later. So those are some of the portraits that I did. I also did one dressage horse with its rider in Pasadena. I guess it was a Kentucky piece. I'm not real sure, but that was a fun one too. So I did those for quite a while, and I still do them from time to time. I do. I enjoy them. I don't do them, every day, but I really, really enjoy painting people and all their things, still life and that sort of thing. So my favorite thing is still life and portraits and pets. We do a lot of pets, a lot of dogs. Yes.
Well, thank you. That was a wonderful review of the work that you've done, and it has been a joy to watch you perform that work over the last 40 years.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And so we bring this evening to a conclusion on our introduction to landscape. And we trust you've gotten some wonderful parting tips on how to make your landscape. Next week, we will bring you one more, and we're trying to organize at least one, if not 2 more, as we begin to move into August. So I hope you'll check us out again, and you'll find the recordings of these on the McCall College website. So feel free to go to YouTube /McCall College, all one word, and there you'll discover the videos that we've been talking about. Eventually, they'll also arrive on YouTube Nettie, and so that also will be an option at some point in the future. We look forward to be able to edit these videos up for your viewing. Thank you again for joining us tonight, and we look forward to the opportunity for community education on YouTube, sponsored by McCall College.